Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we are going to be talking about Ramadan.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah, especially for everyone. But, I think this deep dive is going to be especially useful for people who are maybe preparing for their first Ramadan or one of their first Ramadans.
Definitely.
So we're going to be looking at this source called Ramadan for new Muslims, Strengthening Iman, and just kind of going through some of the key insights and advice that it offers.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think it'll be really helpful. One of the things that really stood out to me from the start was how it talks about Iman as like a journey. And that really resonated with me because it acknowledges that faith isn't static. It's constantly evolving.
Right. It's very dynamic. It can grow stronger at times and it can, kind of waver at other times. And I think Ramadan is such a perfect opportunity to really nurture it and help it grow.
Yeah, like a spiritual boost.
Exactly.
And one thing I've always found really helpful for strengthening my own Iman during Ramadan is connecting deeply with the Quran.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you found that in your experience?
Oh, for sure. I think the fact that the Quran was revealed during this month just makes it extra special.
Right.
And this source actually suggests that reciting it, even if you are, still learning Arabic, it brings immense rewards.
Oh, that's encouraging, I think, especially for new Muslims who might feel a bit intimidated by the language barrier.
Absolutely. It's about the connection with the words and the message and even the rhythm of the Quran, even listening to recitations. I know when I was first learning Arabic, I would just have the recitations playing during my commute or something.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it just helped the words kind of like seep in.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
The source even mentions listening to recitations while doing chores.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Like integrating it into your daily life.
Right. Finding those little moments throughout the day.
Yeah, and speaking of connection, the source also highlights the significance of Salah and Dhikr during Ramadan.
Yes.
I was hoping we'd get to that.
Of course. Such fundamental practices.
Yes, but I imagine they take on even deeper meaning during this month?
They really do, and this source describes them as pillars of connection with Allah. Prayer offering us structured moments of, reflection and devotion,
Right.
while remembering Allah throughout the day helps maintain that connection beyond those prayer times.
Yeah, and I think for people who are new to these practices, it might feel a little overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
Any advice on how to approach them during Ramadan?
Well, I would say start small.
Okay.
Be consistent. Maybe, focus on perfecting your prayer and incorporating just a few simple phrases of dhikr into your daily routine. Something like subhanallah or alhamdulillah. Just little things like that can have a profound impact when they're repeated with intention.
Yeah, I love that. Just beautiful reminders.
Yeah.
To be mindful of Allah's presence throughout the day. Maybe even set reminders on your phone for dhikr.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Just little things like that.
Yeah, create a rhythm of remembrance throughout the day.
And of course, we can't talk about Ramadan without talking about fasting.
Right.
It's such a central part of the experience.
It is, and this source does a really great job of going beyond, just the physical act of abstaining from food and drink.
Right.
It delves into the deeper spiritual purpose behind it.
Oh, I'm curious to hear more about that. What resonated with you about this source's take on fasting?
I really like how it emphasizes that it's not about deprivation, but about cultivating self-control and mindfulness, and when we do experience those pangs of hunger, it can be a reminder of our reliance on Allah and the purpose behind the fast.
Right. It's turning a physical challenge into a spiritual opportunity.
Exactly.
And speaking of opportunities, Ramadan's a special time for dua.
Yes.
Or supplications.
Yeah.
The source talks about how prayers are especially likely to be answered during this month.
Yes.
Particularly during the last 10 nights. I've always found that so fascinating. What is it about Ramadan that makes it such a potent time for dua?
Well, the source mentions Laylatul Qadr, which is a night in the last 10 nights of Ramadan that's considered to be more blessed than 1,000 months.
Wow.
It's a night of immense spiritual power and destinies can be changed.
Wow.
So making sincere supplications during this period holds incredible significance.
That's really remarkable. For new Muslims, I imagine this might feel a little daunting. Does the source offer any guidance on how to approach dua during Ramadan?
Well, it emphasizes approaching dua with sincerity and humility, and it really encourages you to use your own language.
Okay.
You don't have to use formal Arabic prayers if you're not comfortable with that yet. It's more about that heartfelt connection with Allah, asking for guidance and strength.
That's so reassuring.
Yeah,
It's the intention and sincerity of our hearts that matters most.
absolutely.
It's like a conversation
It is.
with the divine. Another crucial aspect of navigating Ramadan, especially for new Muslims, I think, is the importance of building a support system.
Yes, definitely.
Having a community to share the journey with, I think, can make a world of difference.
It can. It can help you stay motivated.
Yeah.
It can offer guidance.
Yeah.
And the source suggests finding a local mosque or connecting with online communities to learn from others and find that sense of belonging. Being around others who are observing Ramadan can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's
Yeah.
like tapping into the collective wisdom and experience of the community.
Exactly.
There's so much to learn and share,
Yeah, and for those who might be the only Muslim in their family or workplace,
right?
the source offers advice for navigating those unique challenges as well.
Yes, that's something I wanted to touch on as well. It can be difficult to observe Ramadan when those around you might not fully understand or share the experience. What kind of advice does the source offer for those situations?
Well, one thing is to encourage open and honest communication with family members and colleagues.
Okay.
Explain the spiritual significance of fasting and what it means to you. Sometimes simply sharing your perspective can create understanding and support.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It's like building bridges of understanding.
It is.
And on a practical level, the source also recommends preparing suhoor and iftar meals in advance.
Yes, especially if you have a busy work schedule.
Right.
Planning ahead can really help you stay on track.
It takes the pressure off,
Yeah,
and it allows you to focus on those spiritual aspects of the month.
exactly.
Before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, is there anything else that stood out to you from this section of the source?
I was really struck by how the source acknowledged the potential for loneliness during Ramadan, particularly for those who might not have a strong local Muslim community.
Yes.
So, it's so important to validate those feelings
Right.
and provide resources.
Yeah.
Ramadan is often portrayed as a time of togetherness.
Yeah.
But the reality is it can also be quite isolating for some
Right.
individuals.
Yeah.
But even in those moments of solitude, the source highlights the beauty of self-reflection. Ramadan offers this unique opportunity to connect with your inner self
Yes.
and deepen your understanding of your own spiritual journey.
Like Ramadan invites us to embark on both an inward and outward journey.
Yes.
Simultaneously, it's a time for personal growth, communal connection, and spiritual deepening.
I couldn't have said it better myself. As we were wrapping up that last section, I was thinking about all the challenges that might come up during Ramadan.
Right.
Especially for those who are new to the experience.
Yeah, it's one thing to learn about, the spiritual practices, but putting them into practice in our everyday lives
Right.
is a whole other thing.
Absolutely.
The source talks about that, finding that balance
Yeah.
between our spiritual commitments and the demands of daily life.
Right.
Especially, within families or workplaces that might not fully understand.
Right. It's like navigating two different worlds
Yeah.
sometimes. And one thing I thought was helpful that the source mentioned was having open conversations with family members who might not be familiar with fasting.
I think that's such a good point. Sometimes we kind of assume people just won't get it.
Right.
But, clear communication
Yeah.
can go such a long way.
Yeah, just explaining the spiritual significance behind it,
Right.
not just the physical, I'm not eating or drinking.
Right, the why.
Yeah, exactly.
The source also mentioned preparing suhoor and iftar meals in advance.
Oh, yeah, especially if you have a busy work schedule.
Oh my gosh, game changer.
It really is.
Just taking that stress off
Yeah,
and freeing up your time and energy to really focus on those spiritual aspects.
exactly.
The source also delves into the emotional side of Ramadan,
Yeah.
acknowledging that some new Muslims might experience, feelings of loneliness, especially if they don't have a strong local Muslim community.
Right, and I think that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
Because Ramadan is always, shown as this joyous community gathering.
Right.
But, there can be a lot of introspection and solitude,
Yeah.
which can lead to, feelings of isolation
Right.
for some people.
And for those who might be feeling that way, the source really highlights the power of online communities,
Oh, yeah.
which I think is so amazing.
Incredible.
Technology can connect us with like-minded individuals
Right.
across geographical boundaries.
Yeah, it creates a virtual space for support and learning and sharing experiences.
Yeah, and even beyond online communities, the source also talks about just taking those quiet moments of solitude as an opportunity for self-reflection. It's like Ramadan is an invitation to connect with your inner self on a deeper level.
I love that.
As we move towards the last part of our deep dive, I think it's worth circling back to the source's emphasis on staying motivated throughout Ramadan.
Yeah.
It is a month-long journey.
It is.
And, it's natural for our energy and enthusiasm to fluctuate.
Yeah, of course we'll have our ebbs and flows.
Yeah. What stood out to you in that regard?
I really liked the reminder that even small acts of worship are valuable in the eyes of Allah.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's about, consistent effort and sincere intention.
I appreciate that message because it's so easy to get caught up in this idea that we need to be doing everything perfectly.
Right.
And that could just be overwhelming and counterproductive.
Totally.
And, especially for new Muslims who are observing Ramadan for the first time.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important message.
Take small steps.
Yeah.
Celebrate your progress.
Yeah. Progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
I keep thinking about this idea of Ramadan being a journey.
It is.
A journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
A journey of spiritual growth. And a journey of deepening our connection with Allah.
I love that.
And it's a journey that we're all on together.
Yeah.
Supporting and learning from each other along the way.
Beautifully said.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what would you say is like the key takeaway that you want our listeners to remember?
From this section of the source.
Yeah.
I think just embracing both the challenges and the joys of Ramadan. It's a month filled with opportunities for growth, but it's also a test of our patience and resilience and commitment. So finding that balance, leaning into the support of our community, and remembering the deeper purpose behind our actions.
I think that's a perfect note to transition into that final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore how to make this Ramadan a truly transformative experience. So welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Ramadan for new Muslims, strengthening Iman. It's been such an inspiring journey.
It really has.
I feel like we've learned so much.
Yeah, so many practical tips and insightful reflections.
Yeah, and as we were wrapping up, I wanted to touch on something that the source said that I thought was really beautiful. It was the idea of Ramadan being a gift.
Oh, I love that.
Instead of looking at it as like, an obligation or a set of rules, we can approach it with this sense of gratitude for the opportunity that it presents.
Exactly.
It's a chance to, deepen our connection with Allah, purify our hearts, realign ourselves with, our spiritual goals.
Yeah, and it emphasizes that every effort we make, no matter how small, is recognized and valued.
Right. It's not about being perfect. It's about having that sincere intention and putting in that consistent effort.
Exactly.
And, speaking of intention, the source concludes with this really thought-provoking question that I want to share with you and all our listeners. It says, how can you make this Ramadan a truly transformative experience in your journey of faith?
That's a good one.
I know, right?
To reflect on.
It really invites us to think about, what are my aspirations for this month? What are my spiritual goals?
Yeah, what do I hope to achieve during this time?
It's like a call to action.
Yes,
instead of just being, passive observers.
Yeah, take ownership of your Ramadan experience.
Yes.
Shape it into something meaningful for you.
So as we conclude our deep dive into Ramadan for new Muslims, strengthening Iman, what final thoughts or insights would you like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that Ramadan is a journey. And like any journey, there will be moments of joy, challenge, and discovery. Embrace all of it. Lean on the support of your community.
Right.
And never lose sight of that profound spiritual opportunity that Ramadan presents.
Beautifully said. We're not alone on this journey.
We're not.
We have each other, our faith, and the guidance of Allah to support us every step of the way.
And remember, even the smallest steps taken with sincerity can lead to great transformation.
So to all of you listening, we wish you a Ramadan filled with blessings, growth, and spiritual renewal. And if you're looking for more support and inspiration, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive.
Yes.
For more insightful explorations, we'd love to have you join our community of learners.
Ramadan Mubarak.